I have 7:05. I'm willing to give people 5 minutes. So we're going to get started. For those of you who are on time and ready to go at 7 o'clock, I apologize, but we are going to get started. Couple of things, I guess. This meeting is being recorded so that we can post it so folks can take a look at it later as well, for reference in case they couldn't make tonight's meeting. So be note of that. If you have any questions as we go, try and throw them in the chat. And I'm kind of running solo here a little bit tonight, so I don't have a wingman to answer questions or feed me information. But if you do have any questions, particularly toward the end as we get through most of the slides, you know, I'll stay at the end. I'll answer as many questions as you have, but maybe throughout the course of the presentation, the questions will get answered. And if not, you know, if it's something that's a burning issue that I didn't get a chance to cover tonight, just send me an email and I'll make sure that, you know, we get your questions answered before everything goes too far along the line. So I don't want to keep this to be a 6-hour meeting or anything like that, but I'm going to run through a bunch of information. I know everybody's anxious, what's going on with camp. So I wanted to share some things that we know, some things that we don't, and some things that we're not so sure about. So hopefully everyone can see the screen well and you can hear me. If not, somebody let me know. Anyway, my name's Dave Cerebro. I'm the guy that's been kind of trying to keep things together here in the background and leading the charge to get everybody back to Goose Pond this summer. If you're like me, you missed camp very much last year, and a lot of other people did, and everybody's really looking forward to another season at camp. And as you'll see in my slides, you know, camp will be a little different this year, but it's still going to be fun, and we're still going to be back out doing all the good stuff that we're used to, at least as much as possible anyway. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of start moving through the slides. But again, if you have any questions, try and pop them in the chat, and by the end of the meeting, I'll try and make sure we do that. So I did put a couple of slides in about what's new at Goose Pond since the last time maybe you were there. If you remember that strip of buildings outside the dining hall, our quartermaster shed, our old pavilion, and our cook's cabin, they're all gone. We picked up the cook's cabin and moved it. There's a really cool picture there. And we tore down the old pavilion and the maintenance shop. And in its place, we put in a really cool new pavilion. These are some pictures where it was just about almost done, 90% done, and a couple other pictures, but I gave you a couple angles. It's 60 feet long. It's like 24 feet wide. And so we got a great new outdoor seating pavilion. It couldn't come in at a better time when we maybe need some outdoor seating and some extra spacing for folks. So that's something that's new at Goose Pond to look forward to if you haven't been there. A lot of people have been asking me what's going on with the Dan Beard cabin. It's not done, but it is has some use, and it is usable, and it is up. The nice picture there looks almost like a picture postcard, except for the stack of shingles laying in the yard. But that is this past summer, and there's a couple pictures of what the building looked like as it was going up. So the Dan Beard cabin is underway. It is a slow process. I don't know if it'll be done by camp, but I think it'll be usable, and we may be able to use it for some programming this year. So something to look forward to. What else is new at Goose Pond? On the far right of your screen there, it's hard to notice, but the Order of the Arrow put in a safety trail. It's been something on my list for a long time. So that's looking from the shale pit up to the main gate parking area. So there's now like a 4-foot off the paved road trail between those two locations to help keep scouts off the paved road while they're walking between those two areas of camp. And then a couple pictures there on the left of some stuff. We spruced up the front gate and made some more additional parking and stuff there. So those are a few things that are new. I thought I'd do that. But getting into some of the things that are going on. It's hard to start, but we're going to start. We just got to jump in and do it. You know, how do we host summer camp in a pandemic, or hopefully as we get a little further down the road, a post-pandemic? And I'm going to put a giant asterisk on just about everything that's in these slides and everything that I'm going to say tonight. And that asterisk is that it could change. Things could change. It could go one way or another. Things could stay the same, or things could certainly go a different direction. So keep that in mind. So don't hold me to anything. I'm going to try and give you as much facts as possible and what we know and where we are right now. But again, please understand that things are changing. Our world situation is changing constantly, so we're keeping that in mind. Some of the things that we've been using for guidance along the way, of course, are the CDC and the Pennsylvania Department of Health. They have put out some guidance last year for summer camps. They haven't really updated them much for this year, but we are working with those particular set of guidance for opening camp this year, and we're trying to stick to that as much as we possibly can. I want to also let you know that our council has put together a really active team of great volunteers and professionals, and professionals in multiple different fields that have been addressing a number of different aspects of summer camp for the last 2 to 3 months or so, and are still working and putting together some final things on the frosting here for summer camp as we get a little closer. So keep that in mind. Again, camp will be different this year, but we are going to try and include as much as possible. I was really taking it from a perspective of, you know, not what we can't do at camp, but how can we do all the things that we like to do in a safe way. So that was kind of my take on things, and there's so many things about camp that everyone loves, and those are the things we want to focus on and keep going. So here's some things we don't know yet, and I'm going to talk more about some of these items as we move forward, but these are some things we don't know yet. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the cohort or bubble concept, that's when a group comes together at camp and will stay in that cohort or that bubble throughout the whole time they're at camp. So a cohort or bubble is a group that stays together and does not intermix with other groups or does not break the bubble. They stay within their own bubble. So we don't know what those cohort or bubble requirements are going to be, if they're going to be requirements at all. So those are some things we're going to talk about. So the cohort bubble concept, again, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. What are some of our limited group sizes? Are we going to be allowed to meet as a group? And what is that cohort or that bubble size going to be? Is it 10? Is it 25? Is it 50? Is it 100? Is it 300? Some of those things we don't know yet, or we're making decisions on. Do we have to limit capacities on our camp or campsites, our programs or facilities, things like that? So we're going with the guidance we have at this time, and we don't think we'll have to limit our capacities too much, if at all, but anything could happen. We're not sure exactly how we're going to do feeding yet. I have a slide on some concepts. It's probably going to be a hybrid of a number of different ways we're going to feed you guys at camp, but we're not 100% sure how that's exactly going to work, and I can't tell you today, you know, what every specific detail that's going to be. Same thing with our program, how we're going to do that. So our program is still pretty dynamic, and I have some more specific slides on talking about how we're going to make that work. But again, there's some things we just don't know yet. We're kind of waiting for additional guidance. We're waiting for some additional decisions to be made. And of course, things are changing as we move forward. What's the Merit Badge schedule structure going to look like? And I have a slide, we're going to talk about that. Will we be able to do campfires and flag ceremonies and other group activities? We're not really sure yet. We're going to certainly move in that direction and hope that we can, but there may be some options where we're not going to be able to do that, or we may have to limit some of those things. So those are a few things we're really not sure about yet. And we don't know yet, but I do have some more details for you. Here's some things we do know. All right. Everybody's going to have to work together to help keep everyone else safe. This is a group project. So it's not about us keeping you safe or you keeping your scout safe, or a scout keeping himself or herself safe. It's about everyone working together to make sure everybody's safe, and being a little bit of a watchdog about some of that. Flexibility is a must. I had a graphic on there, Semper Gumby, right? Semper Gumby, flexibility is a must. Things may change midstream. Things could change tomorrow. Things could change during the week you're at camp. So you got to have an attitude of being flexible, as we always do, and scout leaders and y'all are very good about that to begin with. It's kind of part of our program and who we are. Will we going to have to wear masks at camp? Yes, we are. Are we going to have to social distance at camp? Yes, we are. Is there going to be a lot of hand sanitizing and hand washing at camp? Yes, there is. Will we be doing extra cleaning and sanitizing of facilities, equipment, et cetera? Yes, we will. Okay. And there will be some sort of health screening before, upon arrival, and during camp. Those are things that we know right now for sure. Again, in good change, but these are some things that we know. People keep asking me, do we have to have a vaccine to come to camp? No, vaccines will not be required. Vaccination will not be required to come to camp. That we don't believe that's going to change. All right. What else do we know? We do know that unfortunately there probably will be no family night at camp this year. That's just certainly a huge unknown day, with a lot of different people coming from a lot of different places, to make sure that we are not going to introduce that kind of aspect into the camp environment. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. Same thing with visitors. Visitors are going to be extremely limited, not just on family night, but other times as well. Coming and going from camp, once checked in, will be very limited. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So there is kind of a concept I want you to be aware of, that once you leave, you may not be able to come back during your week at camp. So those are some things that are probably going to be limited. I don't know if we're going to be hard and fast about that, but there's certainly going to be a limitation placed on that. Our team that I mentioned earlier is working full-blown fast on putting together a full written operation plan, and we will post that. And of course, it will be a living document subject to change. That plan and some of those decisions are getting reviewed right now by our health professionals, our risk management committee, a bunch of key leadership and other people that are on our team. So keep those things in mind. Those things will be posted so you guys can take a look at them. But I did want to get this. Meeting out kind of in place for you, so that you could set your mind at ease, and then maybe start thinking a little bit about what some things you want to start knowing in advance, and kind of maybe instilling in your scouts and your families, and things for them to start thinking about as well. I know you're getting a lot of questions to do that. So we're in the beginning of April here. I'd probably like to have another meeting, or at least one more meeting, but probably 2 more meetings like this, so that we can go over very specific things. I'd like to have another one in early May and potentially another one in early June. So you can kind of keep those things open. As we go, we want to make sure you guys have as much information as possible. And once decisions and things are made, we want to share all that stuff with you. It's a great picture of me being excited about being back at the pond there. But these are some things that are possible that I need you to start thinking about, that are possibilities that we don't know the answers to yet. We may have to reduce our capacity as a camp. There may be a point coming down the road where I may call you and say, "Hi, Mr. Scoutmaster or Miss Scoutmaster, you're only going to be allowed to bring X number of scouts and leaders to camp, and here's how that's going to go." I hope it doesn't go that way, but it might. That's a possibility. We may have to camp 1 per tent. We don't know that yet right now. We're hoping that's not going to be the case. We're hoping that we will be able to put 2 scouts per tent. And if that's the case, they will be sleeping head to toe. They will be sleeping head to toe. That does meet the 6-foot requirement once they're in the regular camp tents. All right, I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but that's a possibility. These are things that are possible. I'm not sure yet. Once you leave, you can't come back. I mentioned that in a slide previous. Scout leaves camp to go to an all-star game. That may be his choice to do that, and he or she may exit the camp process at that point. We don't necessarily want them to do that. Of course, there'll be some exceptions for reasonable things. Of course, I'm not a crazy person, as many of you know. Definitely willing to take a look at things and make decisions based on everything that is feeding into that. We may be feeding you guys in the campsites. I'll talk more about food service in a minute, but we may be feeding you guys at the campsites. There may be a cohort or bubble model in place where you have to stay together as a troop for pretty much everything you do in camp, or with the campsite, with the folks you're sharing a campsite with. You may be in that cohort or that bubble. That model may be in place. We're probably looking at some assigned times for check-in. So in the past, almost everybody kind of arrived between 1 and 1:30. We may space that out and ask you to have a specific check-in time where we can roll things in. So keep that in mind. We'll keep that in mind and see what happens. There may be limited camp-wide activities. So these are some things that are possible. Again, I'm not sure which way things are going to go, but certainly there are things that are realistically possible, or realistic things that might happen in the future, depending on how things go. All right. Again, what do we know? Camp will be different this summer, but we will have camp. That's probably the most important thing everybody's been asking. Are we having camp? Yeah, we're having camp. We're doing trying to do a yeoman's job to really try and make sure that we plan a safe and fun camp experience for everybody who wants to be at camp. So we really want everybody back. We missed everybody a whole lot. And everybody keeps asking, are we having camp? Yes, we are. All right. In the next slide, I'm going to show you my reservation chart that I've been kind of keeping track of the troops and who's coming when. So as a precursor to that next slide, these are some things to keep in mind. This is a working chart for date purposes only. All right, so I want you to take a look at it and make sure that your troop is in the right date. And I want you to, you'll be able to see that our weeks and stuff are pretty balanced. So we don't have a lot of flexibility on moving around too much. So we want to make sure you're in there and you're in the right place. Campsites will be assigned later based on attendance, capacity issues, safety needs, etc. So there's no campsites listed on this reservation chart I'm going to show you in a second. But yes, we will do our best to get you your site preferences, as we always do. All right. There's many blocks on the grid, and there are some troops that are in the same block together. Just because there's a troop in the same block with you does not necessarily mean that is a troop that will be staying with you at camp. Again, it's a working grid, One of the options I want to throw out there is, for those of you familiar with the Pioneer campsite, if any troops are maybe interested in staying at Pioneer this year, it's a little bit more primitive than our regular campsites. It does have latrine and running water and some picnic tables, but it's all pretty much bring your own tents and set up your own kind of troop gear for the most part. And it's across the road up above our chapel area. So if anybody's interested potentially in staying in Pioneer as a troop this year, that might be a way to stay away from a lot of other units, or maybe not have to share a campsite, or do things a little bit more old school. So if that's something you're interested in, shoot me an email and say, hey, Dave, we might be interested in Pioneer, or I'm going to talk to my committee or my troop about that. Just kind of throw that out there as an option, a possibility. So here's the grid that I mentioned. Take a look at that for a minute and see if your troop is in the right week. Hopefully it is. A couple weeks ago, I sent out a survey. It was really a survey ongoing for a month or so. I really had to beat some of you guys down over the head to respond to the survey, but I asked you to give me your best guess, best ballpark estimate of how many scouts and leaders you think you're going to be bringing to camp this year based on where you are right now. And again, I'm not holding anybody to those numbers that you guys told me, but it did give us a better perspective on how many people are coming to camp and when and who and that sort of thing. So that was very helpful. There's over 100 troops who have made reservations for Goose Pond this summer, and that's quite a bit of units. But the number of scouts that are coming each week is pretty well balanced. Weeks 1 through 5 or so are really pretty well balanced. 6 and 7 potentially have a little bit of room to grow, but not much. I am generally declining additional new reservations. I probably get an email or a call every day from some troop from somewhere who wants to come to Goose Pond because whatever. And at this point, we're really not taking any new troop reservations, although there is a little bit of wiggle room here and there. I've had some troops ask me to switch weeks or switch dates. And at this point in time, that's really a difficult thing. So we're trying to keep the weeks balanced, not overbook things too much. And we're trying to keep things kind of in check, so we have a kind of a homogeneous set of numbers to work with, and we know what we're going to be dealing with without a lot of surprises and too many changes. So we can make some decisions based on those numbers going forward. All right, so if there's something that's goofy on here, or you don't know why you're in a certain week or whatever, please email me, shoot me a message later privately, and we'll get it worked out, hopefully. But anyway, this is kind of our grid. Again, if there's another troop in the same block as you, that does not mean you're sharing the site or sharing anything with them, just because I ran out of blocks on the grid. All right, it's just kind of the way it went. All right, moving forward, some things we know, these are some things that haven't changed and won't change for sure. May 15th is still our magic date for payment in full. And many of you have been asked, when do we have our payments in? Do we need to send you a deposit now? No, you don't. May 15th is the magic date if you want to get the reduced rate. You want to get the early payment date. So the vast majority of you rolled over your reservation from 2020. So if you did that by the time that I requested to let us know what you wanted to do with your 2020 reservation, some of you, almost everybody rolled it over, not everybody. We promised that you guys would be locked into the 2020 fee schedule, which is 380 and 405, May 15th and after May 15th. There are a dozen or so units who made reservations after June-ish last year when we decided we needed to cancel camp. So if you made a reservation with us, a new reservation after that point, you'll be working on the 2021 fee schedule, which you see there has gone up a little bit from the year before. Nothing too, no great shakes there, but I just want to make sure you guys all know what the pricing was. And I've been sharing that graphic or that document with you as we've gone forward in communications as well. All right, leader fees, this is no change. We did not raise the leader fees from 2020 to 2021. All of this is still the same as it was for 2020, and it still applies today. Here's your free leaders, here's your ratios. It's $125 for leaders. There is an after-time fee, $145 after May 15th. So try and get that in. And we may be, I've been pretty flexible on that in the past, but we're really looking for some numbers so we can plan. This is probably, of all the years I've been camp director, this is really the year that I'd really like to know some better numbers up front, so we can plan better for that. So if you know your leaders are coming to camp, pay for them now and let us know that. Or not now, but May 15th. All right, so just a little bit on our refund policy. This is not new. I have a second slide here to show you what is new, but this is basically our refund policy as it's been in the past. The first $50 is non-refundable, but other fees are transferred to new scouts that kind of add on later. And of course, involving circumstances with extreme circumstances, you can write for a refund, and we'll consider that as we go forward. What has changed, and I know some people have asked about this, if the government or the council decides we need to close camp again, God, I hope that doesn't happen. You know, fingers crossed, knock on wood, all of that. We will refund 100% of your fees paid, of course. And then this is another new bullet point here, but individuals who test positive or are forced to quarantine due to known exposure within 2 weeks prior to arrival, or those sent home during the check-in process due to COVID concerns, will be refunded 100% of their fees, less the $50 deposit. So keep that in mind. Those are 2 new updates to our refund policy. Of course, we're trying to work with everybody and not penalize them for things that are beyond our control too much. All right. Talk a little bit about our leader requirements. Most of our leadership requirements have not changed. Again, I want to reiterate this. Most of those things have not changed. The few things there in blue I'll talk about in a minute are the things that are kind of maybe different, or things to kind of keep in the back of your head as we move forward. You know, your troop is still required to have 2 adults, 21 years or older, registered with the Boy Scouts, youth protection trained, for your troop while you're at camp. If you're a female girls troop, you're required to have at least 1 female adult in that group. Our recommendation is you have 1 adult for every 6 to 8 scouts. That's kind of why we have the leader pricing structured the way it is, based on multiples of 7. So we may have to place an excess, a limit on excess leaders. What does excess mean? I don't know, but you guys know what that means. Some of y'all bring 6 kids to camp and 12 adults. That's kind of who I'm targeting here, and that's an extreme example, but it does happen sometimes. So you know, we may ask some of those leaders who just come to hang out and chill out and have a vacation at camp. Maybe those are some of the folks you want to say to take a break this year and limit some of our bodies in camp. So we may have to do that. I hope I won't have to, but kind of keep that in mind. High-risk individuals is defined by the CDC. Not that all high-risk individuals are leaders. Some of them are scouts as well, but keep that in mind that the Boy Scouts of America has said if you fall into that high-risk category, again, whether you're a youth or an adult as defined by the CDC, we ask that you stay home. Unless, of course, you're cleared by your doctor. If your doctor clears you to come to camp because whatever your underlying risk factors are really not pertinent, or the doctor thinks they're going to be okay at camp, then that's okay with us. And again, please talk to your leaders. There may be some limit on coming and going to camp. Some of those adult leaders you've had come to camp who, you know, come to camp after work and stay overnight, have breakfast with us, and then go to work the next day and then come back to camp. That's probably not going to be allowed, or not likely going to be allowed this year. You have leaders who like to go out on Wednesday to play golf and then come back to camp. Again, that's probably not going to be allowed. So keep that in mind with your leaders. I know they like to have a lot of freedom to come and go and come in when they want, leave when they want, and that kind of stuff, because you have a lot of extra leaders. But we will probably need to tighten that up a little bit this year. So those 3 things in blue there are some things to consider as we move forward. This is not, the rest of this is not new. The 72-hour rule: any adults in camp for 72 hours or more, does not have to be consecutive, must be registered with the Boy Scouts, have youth protection training. All adults must have current youth protection training, completed a BSA medical form, all parts. So if you're just staying over for 1 night or 2 nights, Does that mean you only need parts A and B? No, it means you need a full completed medical form, parts A, B, and C if you're staying overnight at resident camp. That goes for adults. Again, in PA clearances for those registered with the Boy Scouts in Pennsylvania, I know y'all are intimately familiar with those requirements, so that's not new. And as always, but even more so this year, we're going to rely on you as unit leadership to help with some supervision to make sure that our safety protocols and procedures are in place, as well as our normal supervision of our youth. So those are some things to keep in mind for leadership as we go forward. I did want to note, a few people have asked about this. We were a little bit behind the 8 ball on getting our campship applications out, but the applications are out. If you have scouts or families in true financial need, and they're from the Northeastern Pennsylvania Council, we do have some funding available. Forms are now available online, or hard copies available at the service center. They're located. That's one place they're located. They will be in other places. And the due date is May 1st. So if you have any scouts who are looking for camperships, you have about a month or so to kind of get those together and get those requirements in. The biggest thing I always tell people is fill out the form, please. Just fill out the form. So often families don't fill out the information that we need to help make decisions on funding or support. So they don't fill in the blanks, they don't get things done, or they don't really tell us why they need the support. So that's all I'm going to say about camperships. They are available, they're out there. Let's talk about some medical stuff. What's going on? What's going on? So these are some things that are not new. These are the old school things that you all should know if you're a seasoned adult. All youth and adults must have a medical form. All right, you all know that. Parts A, B, and C completed. Part C requires a doctor's physical, and you need the photocopy of your insurance card if you have insurance back and front attached to your form. Those things have not changed. Okay, that's all still basic stuff. Now is a great time to start getting your families and your other adult leaders engaged so that their BSA physical medical forms are ready to go for summer camp. So you're not messing around with that. That's really not, there's really not going to be a lot of room for, I forgot my medical form at camp. If you don't have that information, this is not the year to forget your medical form. So I'm going to say, start working on that now and getting folks to collect those forms and getting them up to date. Take a look at them, make sure they're all in good working order, they're signed, the parts are filled out. You all have somebody in your unit who is got a little bit of a medical background, I'm sure, that could take a look at those forms and make sure that they look pretty good and bring any issues to light that you may want to know about before you come to camp. Last year, if you remember, some communications from the national office that there was an extension. They were extending the Part C for 18 months as opposed to 12 months. So that's gone. That extension option is expired. So you know, your medical does need to be signed by a doctor within 12 months of attending camp. So probably a lot of you are behind on that anyway. So now's a good time to get a new one for camp and you'll be good to go. As I already mentioned, vaccines are not required. But if you've received a vaccine, it could be noted on the medical form. There's a place for that. The medical form did not change, but there is a place for noting any health changes, things like that, and noting any other medical treatments that are you've received since the last exam. So those are things that are not new. What is new with regard to medicals? And I have the word likely kind of italicized here to let you know that these are not 100% defined yet, but it's pretty likely there will be a pre-health monitoring process that we're going to ask all your scouts and leaders who are participating in camp this year to kind of monitor themselves within 2 weeks before camp, maybe amend their behavior a little bit, and to keep watching out for their health. And that form isn't defined yet from our council, but it's more than likely going to be the one that National put out in December. If you Google pre-camp health screening medical BSA, it'll come right up. There's a form that the Boy Scouts have put out. They updated it in December. It's basically a checklist process. Have you been here? Have you been there? Have you been unwell? Have you been in contact? Those typical questions that if you've been anywhere recently, you kind of know what to do. So we're going to ask people to monitor their health for 2 weeks or so before they come to camp. There will likely be some sort of COVID waiver that will need to be signed by parents of scouts and turned in at check-in. It's probably going to be very similar to the waiver that our council has been using all along since last year. And it basically says, look, risk cannot be eliminated, and the possibility exists. So that's out there. Again, we'll communicate that with you as we get closer. Those are forms that you don't need right now anyway. They're forms that you'll need a lot closer to summer camp. Daily health checks will also be likely. We'll be asking your help as leaders to do some daily health checks in the campsites, and we'll be checking temperatures and just kind of assessing people's health on a daily basis to make sure that we're not going down a path somewhere with somebody. So, and it'll be important to have that conversation with your scouts about being honest with how they feel and what's going on with their health. So that'll be very important to try and do that. Also, Mama Donna is back. I threw that in there. Most of you know Donna, our health officer, has been with us for a long time. She is indeed going to be back this summer. Kind of going along with check-in, some things at camp to try and think about. So we're going to probably have you collect those pre-camp health assessments at check-in. So that might be something you want to do if you're going to meet at the church parking lot, for example, and travel in a caravan to camp. Maybe that's a great place to collect those health assessments. Where have you been? How have you been feeling for the last 2 weeks? And look at them. If there's a lot of no answers on there, or the lines don't match up, you might want to ask that scout to turn around and come back, or turn around and go home and not come to camp. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to collect those forms. Again, medical forms, I can't stress enough that this is not the year to wing it with medical forms coming to camp. Make sure that they're all together. We may have a 1 p.m. start time, but we may have some possible times assigned. I think I mentioned that earlier in one of the other slides. We are going to ask you to arrive as a group as much as possible, but we will say we're going to discourage carpooling with unrelated people. So, having scouts all jump in one minivan that's got a whole bunch of other people in it that aren't going to be at camp is probably not a good idea. Masks should be worn in all cars by people, and that's part of that safe scouting COVID checklist that's been floating around now for the better part of a year. How do you do that? How do you travel together as a troop? We're going to ask you to manage that as well. So everybody could be doing great and keeping their health in check for those 2 weeks prior to camp, and all of a sudden we all do something crazy by carpooling or stopping at a restaurant or a Walmart on the way to camp, and everybody kind of blows it by bursting their bubble, so to speak. All right, so keep those things in mind. Again, the process for checking in at camp, there'll be a pre-screening or a first health checklist in the parking lot. We'll be talking to you, we're collecting your forms, we'll be asking you about how you feel, doing some health checks. And at that point, your bubble or your cohort sort of begins. And we're going to be asking parents and other drivers who are not staying at camp to depart from the parking lot. Coming into camp and spending the afternoon at camp with your scouts before they leave is really not an option this year. Again, we're trying to limit the visitors and the contact with all the people that are going to be in camp. Once we kind of get into that camp bubble or that camp group, we want to keep it kind of tight as we can. You'll then do a regular full medical recheck as we have been in the past. You'll do your swim check, and there will be probably some special orientation and training with everybody on special extra protocols at camp. I'm not sure what those will all entail yet, but there'll be some things about making sure that people are on top of things and they understand what's required and what the rules are, and those kinds of stuff which are maybe special for this 2020 season. I want to get into the program a little bit. Everybody's been asking about that, and we haven't made a full decision on this yet, and our health and safety group is still kind of keeping it on the burner, but watching it closely as things change in the world. Yes, there's a lot more vaccinations happening, but the case numbers are still kind of staying where they've been. They really aren't going down dramatically. So we're kind of waiting a little bit on this, but there's 3 potential options for our program schedule at camp this year. One would be a most restrictive, and I don't really have any graphics for this or grids, but we do have a draft schedule together for all of these. They don't really fit on a PowerPoint screen because they're pretty in depth, but the first would be a most restrictive, which would be a full block bubble or cohort, scheduled by area or badge, by troop / campsite, and there'll be no camp-wide activities or group activities, and this would be done by campsite or in campsite. So what does that mean? So your troop may be a bubble. When you come to camp, your troop may all go to the same program areas at the same day at the same time, and you're not going to interact at all with other troops. Maybe if you're sharing a campsite together, that may become the new bubble. So your troop and the other troop may become a new bubble. So as a campsite, you may travel to a program area together. And that doesn't mean you all have to take the same merit badges, but it does limit it a little bit. So for example, on Monday from 9 to 12, your campsite or your bubble, everybody in that group goes to aquatics or goes to nature. You don't have to take the same merit badge, but everybody in that group will be going to that area for that time period, and you're really not going to intermix with anyone else. You'll have some limited contact with the staff in that area and go from there. In the afternoon, maybe from 1 to 4 or 3 to 5 or whatever that time schedule is, you might go to a different program area. You might go to Scoutcraft, or you might go to the shooting ranges. So that's probably the most restrictive level of how we're going to run camp. I hope we don't have to go that way, but again, I don't know the answer to that. Our medium restrictive level is a little bit more free, but still has a block element to it. So this would be more by individual scout, where a scout would choose a merit badge, for example, at aquatics, and he or she would go to that block merit, that merit badge by themselves for 3 to 4 hours. So maybe from 9 to noon in the morning, that scout's going to go to aquatics and work on swimming. And he or she may finish that badge in that 3 to 4 hour block or 3.5 hour block. We're still toying around with that 3 versus 4 hour block time, and may finish that. And then the next point, the afternoon might be something else. You might go to a different badge, or some badges might be doubles because of the time requirement needed to do that. All right, so he or she is not interacting with a lot of other people, but is interacting with some other people, and to some degree keeping a block schedule. For those of you who participated in our Goose Pond Adventure Days this past year, that was kind of the schedule we ran, where a scout picked 2 badges and went to those 2 badges and stayed in that block until it was time to switch. Did not really interact too much with other folks. All right, and then last and most least restrictive would be kind of our business as usual schedule, where again, it's an hourly schedule by badge, individual scout. However, with masks, distancing, sanitizing, etc. So those are 3 options right now. We're going to try and make a decision on this in the next few weeks so that we can kind of give you guys the most up-to-date information on how to plan and give you the down and dirty of what that schedule is going to look like, time frame, blocks, what's going to be offered when, how long each block's going to be, things like that. And again, hopefully as we move forward a little bit, maybe things will be a little bit less restrictive, and we'll be able to kind of go toward the bottom 2 as opposed to the top 2 in that regard. So there's a lot of details to work out no matter what, and we will work those out. And we have a couple of groups who've been doing some yeoman's jobs, keeping up with those schedules and how those kinds of things might work. Okay. Same thing, again, like in the most restrictive schedule, you'd be doing flag ceremonies in your campsites, you'd be doing chapel service in your own campsite, you'd be doing your own things in your own campsites for the most part, and you would just travel to the different program areas for different things. The other 2 levels might have some limited group activities, or may have some ability to do some stuff as a smaller block, or a couple campsites together, that kind of thing. All right, I know that's not clear. I know you'd rather have a definitive answer on that right at the moment, but we're gonna string that one along a little bit longer. However, I do have some information here for you. We are still going to have 55 plus or minus merit badges, give or take a few, summer camp. So all those merit badge options will be available for the scouts that have in the past. Really gone well. If I could ask everybody to please mute yourselves.
Can you see if I'm muted, please?
Thank you. We will still have our ATV program. In fact, we got 8 brand new ATVs last year that nobody got to use or didn't get to use very much. We did use them a little bit. But our ATV program is still in place. We still be running a COPE program with climbing and such. Our COPE committee's been working out the details on that. We'll still be offering our specialty programs, paddle boarding, tote and chip, firemanship, mile swim, things like that. Some things, of course, will need to be modified and changed around. Campfires, flag ceremonies, open time patrol programming, likely to be modified, but we'll try and do those things as much as possible, as close to normal, while being safe. Keep that in mind. Again, our pathways program will depend on the schedule type we end up doing. If we end up with a full block schedule, unit leaders may have to do a pathways program with their own scouts in their own campsite. We may not be able to accommodate that just because of the differences in what everybody will be doing. If we do go with that moderate or intermediate group program or a normal program, pathways will happen as normal. We're probably not likely to offer a lot of outposts. Throwing a bunch of guys in a van and traveling somewhere together is really not a safe thing to be doing. And so we'll probably still try and offer some outposts, but there'll be more in-posts. There'll be some specialty programs in camp that we can do for our older scouts. And a lot of people have been asking about our 100th anniversary celebration. And so unfortunately, that's kind of fizzled a little bit because of the hype and the gathering and the visitation and everyone coming back to be part of that. So we're kind of pushing that down the road a little bit, and our 100th anniversary committee still wants to do a big blowout event, but they decided to have a big blowout event. They're definitely going to wait and not have that this year. So we will have some special celebration stuff in camp this year, the Centennial Medal Award, and some other things our committee's working on so that we can kind of share that 100th anniversary specialness as much as we possibly can this summer. I know people have been asking about that, so we're still working on that. All right, what's next? Let's talk about food service for a minute, a little bit, as we kind of close down the hour here, or getting close to that, and leave some time for questions. But again, food service, there are some possible scenarios. The option of everybody getting into our great old dining hall and bumping elbows and getting in there is definitely not going to happen at camp this summer. So there are some options that we're going to use this summer. One is your meals will be served in sight. We'll be sending out trays of hot food. We'll be enlisting some leaders to take some training to help safely serve that, and then everybody kind of gets their plate and distance eats in the campsite. We may have some options where their meals are boxed or bagged and ready to go, so they can grab and go and then sit somewhere distant and eat those. Those grab and go box or bag meals may be delivered to the sites, or they may be kind of a dining hall thing where guys kind of come through and just grab one and go outside and sit under one of our pavilions or another area. We may assign time shifts for that so it's not so crowded, or the lines are not more as intense. So we'll do that. We may be able to do a cafeteria style served meal from the dining hall, similar to what our lunches have been in the past. Of course, with more distanced eating and maybe time shifts assigned, so there's not as many people around the dining hall at that time. And probably likely it will be some sort of combination of these scenarios for various different meals or days. So, we may do a grab and go lunch, but a meal, hot meal in the campsite for dinner kind of thing. So those are kind of some of the options we're looking at. But again, the days of 8 people at a table and 35, 40 tables in the dining hall probably are not going to be the norm. So some things that you definitely are probably not likely, you're not going to see a salad bar, you're not going to have a self-serve drink machine and other self-serve stuff at camp. So there's a little graphic there with some stuff, and that's maybe what some of your meals at camp might look like in those white foam containers served with the side of Clorox wipes, which are very delicious. And also at the end there, Bill Betts is back. I just want to let everybody know that. So that's a plus for us. Moving on. Just some leadership items here. We will be asking unit leaders to pitch in and help at camp, help keep everyone safe. I started out that this is kind of a team effort, keeping everyone safe in camp, and I'm kind of wrapping up with that a little bit to some degree, excuse me. Unit leaders may be asked to help with meal serving and eating procedures. We may ask you as leaders to kind of help guide the scouts through an eating line and organize that process a little bit and keep people distant and make sure that scouts aren't all jumping around one picnic table to eat together. They'll be needing to spread out and eat at a distance location. Again, masks need to be worn in camp except when eating, sleeping, or swimming probably are probably the 3 exceptions to that for the most part. But other than that, we'll need your help with that. We're going to ask you guys to help with campsite and latrine disinfecting. So general disinfecting in the campsite the picnic tables, the common areas, things like that, as well as latrine. And this may not be the year where the 12-year-old has latrine duty and is given that responsibility. As adults, we're going to ask you to take a little more serious oversight for cleaning the campsite, as always has been. But I know that sometimes in the past we turn that over to the SPL and our younger scouts, and they don't get a lot of guidance on doing that properly. We're going to ask you as leaders to help ensure scouts and leaders are wearing masks, your social distancing, their hand sanitizing, and following other safety rules and protocols that relate to camp, and kind of staying safe as a group together. We're also going to ask you to help with sleeping arrangements and procedures, and those procedures are adhered to. So if we're going to sleep head to toe, we're going to make sure that those scouts are sleeping head to toe. We're going to ask that, they keep their mask on until it's time to go to bed. The last thing they should do before they go down and go to bed is take their mask off. So staying up and talking in a tent all night without a mask on, again, not a safe idea. So we're going to, again, as adults, we're going to ask you to help with that a little bit. All right. We're asking all adults to cooperate and make this a safe, fun year. Here's some things that we thought of that we're going to ask you guys that maybe you want to start thinking about as a troop or a unit to start thinking about at camp. Maybe bringing some extra personal tents or hammocks. All right. So we can, if we do have to go to 1 per tent, we're definitely going to be asking you to bring personal tents and hammocks. If we are allowed to go with 2 per tent, we may still ask you to bring some personal tents or some hammocks. Those are some things you might want to bring, and that's always kind of been an option for folks at camp. Can we bring our own tents? We've always said yes to that pretty much. We may want to ask you as a troop to bring extra pop-ups or canopies. I use the word pop-ups because those are kind of easy and small, and you can spread those out. So you may be able to put a smaller pop-up that can cover 4 people, 3 to 4 people, as opposed to a giant circus tent with walls on it and stuff that people are going to be crowded together in. So some extra canopies that can be spread out. Of course, we have canopies and pavilions in all of our campsites, but we may ask you to bring some extra ones so that if it's raining during dinner time and you have to eat in your campsite, you have some extra places to go and do that without having to actually go in the camp tents where you're sleeping to eat your dinner. We'll try and avoid that as possible. We're going to ask everyone to bring their own chair for use in the campsite, as well as carrying concessions. So a great thing for scouts to have is a chair that they can take to all their merit badge sessions. So when they get to their nature badge or their scoutcraft badge or whatever, they can set up their chair really quick and not have to worry about crowding around a picnic table or a few picnic tables or sitting on the ground. All right, so we're going to do that. We're going to ask you as troop leaders to bring extra sanitizers. Bring small ones so that scouts can have them, take them with them. Bring a couple big bottles to put on the picnic table and around the wash stand and wherever else in camp. Bring some extra masks for your scouts. You know what's going to happen. So bring an extra mask, some hand soap, things like that. We're going to do some extra safety checks each day at camp. I mentioned that earlier. So if your troop has access to a temp gun or a digital thermometer for your troop, bring it along. That'll be a big help. All right. Those are a few things that we thought of that maybe are not the norm or not the normal kind of things you might bring to camp. All right. I'm going to do a little commercial here for camp staff. With not having camp last summer, we really lost a bit of our continuity with our staff. So some people kind of naturally attritioned out, and we had a year where we didn't get to recruit. And so we're trying to fill a gap a little bit more. And we'd also like to bring on some extra people this year with camp to kind of help with some of the extra things that are going on. And be able to have some extra hands to make light work. So we are really, really, really looking for some extra great staff. We do have a lot of our older staff coming back, but we're still looking for more to work in a lot of different areas. I put some comments on there. Camp is a real job. Anybody who's worked on camp staff for a year or more, them and their parents will tell you that the amount of things that they learned and grew as a person was unbelievable. And those are some very intrinsic things that are hard-pressed to get anywhere else. The leadership, the personal growth, communication, all that kind of stuff that happens at camp is unbelievable. Any parent will tell you that their kid came back a different person, particularly on the younger end of the spectrum. I wish Matt was here. He's always a great advocate for that. Matt Wheeland, our program director, to advocate that, camp teaches you so much, and it's a great experience. Some ages there are counselors in training, ages 14 or 15, and then paid staff for counselors age 15 and up. We're interviewing right now. There's applications available online at that website, nepabsa.org/employment opportunities. So please, if you have any scouts, this would be a great year to help us kind of fill our gap where we lost some of our continuity. This is my last slide, I believe, but I just wanted to share a few things with you. One, what's next? I'd like to have another meeting on the first Monday in May, which is May 3rd. Watch your email to sign up again, like this one. I was a little worried that we were going to have a ton of people on this call today, but we didn't. So there's plenty of extra. We have I think we can take up to 500 people on the webinar. So we have plenty of room to do that. If you have any questions, concerns, ideas, the best thing to do is email us. That Goose Pond address goes to a couple different people, or you can email me directly. I didn't put mine on there, but you can email me directly, dave.cerebro@scouting.org, and I'll be happy to help you out. There will be a place online for all kinds of updates and things like that. So this slide deck, the recording of this webinar, etc., will all be kind of in one place. As we get some things posted, we will make sure that it gets to this, but we do have a special web page set up. There is some things on there now that Mr. Morgan has put up, so we appreciate that, and there'll be more as time goes on. So that's our council website with the Return to Camp Summer 2021 / on that. So keep that up, as well as our Goose Pond website, the gpsr.apabsa.org. We'll be posting a lot of stuff there. I'm working on a couple of leader guides right now. We usually have one comprehensive leader guide for summer camp. But I'm probably going to have two different ones I'm working on right now. One is more of a standard leader guide with standard stuff in it that everybody should know, which is really just a modification from past years. And there'll probably be a supplemental guide with a lot of more program stuff in it, and some more maybe COVID specific things as we go forward. So I'm working on those right now. I'm hoping to have those up in a couple of weeks. Our plan, our health safety plan protocols, again, are being worked on right now. Some decisions are being made. We hope to have that stuff up very soon. I think that's it. I do want to thank everybody for taking the time to making sure that you're getting excited for camp. You're interested in camp. You have some information here to talk about camp a little bit. The biggest thing you could probably do right now is get your scouts and your families excited about summer camp. Get them to come to camp. We have all those scouts from last year who didn't get a first year scouts who didn't get an opportunity to go to camp last year. And of course, we have another whole crop of those new scouts again this year. So we want to make sure that we get those scouts in. And many of your older scouts love it so much they really want to be back. So we want to make sure we have that opportunity for them. I'm going to pop over to the chat and try and answer some of the questions that are in the chat if I can. So this kind of ends the formal part of the presentation today. I don't think my other slide is just a sunset there, but I will leave this up with the websites and the other stuff on it. But I did want to go back up and maybe scroll through some of the chat questions and make sure that they did get answered. So if you want to hang around, I'll go through them as quick as I can. But as I said in the past, or I said earlier, please don't hesitate to shoot us an email. And if you have any ideas or questions, we'll be doing that.
That work?
Dedicated to stop whatever.
Dan asked, what if someone has to work at camp, but also someone has to work that week, but also needs to be at camp? I'm not sure what that was about exactly, if it's a leader or a scout. But again, limited coming and going from camp.
It said once you're there, you're there.
It kind of is, and of course there will be some exceptions to that. That doesn't mean that you can't have a leader come in late or a leader switch off, but it's the constant coming and going.
Like once you leave,
we're going to be worried.
Camp, they're not going to let you come back in.
Was that a yes to masks and campsites? Yes. Again, just because you're in your campsite doesn't mean that that's a time where the scouts can be hanging around close to each other without their masks on. Masks, distancing are the protocol and order of the day. It doesn't matter what. All right. Again, there's sometimes they'll be close, but as much as humanly possible, we're going to be wearing masks. We're going to be trying to be distant and sanitize as much as we can. Can personal tents be brought to camp? Yes, I think we covered that already. How are showers going to be sanitized? I didn't get into that too much, but we do have a great sanitation team that's on our committee. that's working on that. I don't know if we'll have assigned shower times, but we will probably have times where showers will be closed so that we actually can do a good sanitization on the bathrooms and showers. So that may not be as loose as it has been in the past. So there may be some times when showers are open and closed so that we can sanitize. And there may be assigned times for units to kind of do showers. I haven't worked that exactly out yet, but we'll go by the recommendations from our sanitation professionals on what we need to do there. Two of our scouts have documented medical exceptions for wearing masks and face shields. Of course, we will be akin to any sort of documented special needs, as we have always been with things. And so we'll go from there, and we'll discuss those on an individual basis as needed. We talked about food. Exemptions, yes, that's the same one. Will there be out of camp outposts like whitewater and rock climbing? I did mention that already. I don't think we'll be doing a lot of that. If we do, it'll be extremely limited. So I don't think we're going to be traveling out of camp in a van to go somewhere, but there may be some options that we can do some limited stuff. We do not register in advance. What about prereqs? I'm not sure I know what that is about exactly. I will have our program schedule out in the next few weeks, and we will have an option for scouts to start registering for badges. One of the things you can start talking and telling your scouts about is what kind of badges do you want to take at camp? Take a look at our badge list from past years and say, here you go, scouts. You know, what kind of badges do you want to take? All right, so they have that in mind, so that when our schedule does come out, you know, you'll be able to kind of go in there and kind of click on the kinds of.
I think, Dave, I think the question was, are they going to register for a badge in advance and then know they're specifically going to take a certain badge?
Right.
Or will they only know the badge when they get there?
No, you will know in advance. We will not. We will definitely. We will definitely have a pre-sign up for badges.
Later, I booked you a flight,
And I hope to have that out in
Friday the 25th.
Awesome.
a little bit of time.
One way.
That was the idea of the prereqs. You know in advance what your badge is.
Could have been half the.
Again, do we want to know if they had COVID on their medicals? Again, there is an area for a health assessment and updates and the kinds of things. If that's something that a family feels that they need to put on that medical form, it's probably not a bad idea. I don't know that it's necessary. I'm not 100% sure about that, but there's definitely a place on the medical forms for all sorts of medical changes to health. Maybe a question on the pre-screening stuff. I don't know. Again, that's not something you have to worry about now. It's just a yes or no later. Is there anything we should special know about scouts being dropped off at camp by an escort scout staying? No. We're just going to say that scouts who, if they're being dropped off by a parent, that's a great idea. We're just going to ask those parents that they really can't be staying. They need to do the drop off and kind of head back on the road once the scouts start heading into camp. And so we understand that. Can you do swim checks prior to camp? Absolutely, just like always. Still on the website, it's been on there for years. There's a pre-camp swim classification form. You can go on there and look at that form. It's not going to change. You can do that in advance. What merit badges? I think I talked about that as well. Can we do an outpost with just older scouts from our own troop? Potentially, yes. If you have enough scouts who want to do a certain kind of activity, providing we have enough staff and the right things to do, we could arrange some things like that. Sure, we're definitely open to that without mixing groups or bursting bubbles or infiltrating cohorts. Can we use your program materials for our troop pathways if needed? Yes. If you end up doing a pathways program on your own, we will certainly give you some guidance and some syllabus and some things to cover to help you with that if you want. That's a great point. This target date for opening merit badge sign up. It's a good question. I'm going to try and have, I'm going to tell you in the next few weeks, but I'm going to say a target is be May 1st to try and have that done. Our next meeting is May 3rd. So either right before, maybe right after that meeting, I think our merit badge sign up will open up and we'll have some decisions made on what kind of program we'll be doing. Leaders need a bigger discount. Tony Polster, I owe you my life. Will these scenarios be locked in? Of course, they could change based on conditions prior to the May 15th early payment discount. We have families who will want to plan A prior to making a decision. So we're going to make some decisions prior to that. Again, hopefully by that May 3rd meeting, we're going to have some decisions made so that you can share that along with everything else that's going on. And if a family decides they don't want to come to camp because they don't want to be part of a bubble or a cohort, or whatever the case may be, they have a couple weeks to make that decision. Carmen Champy, working on staff was one of the best experiences I ever had. Thank you for your thing there, Carmen. I heard you're working at camp again this summer. That'd be awesome. It's great to have you back. Phil Erb mentioned from the Health and Safety Committee. We're going to have some things locked in so we have enough time to make sure we have everything we need to make sure things happen. Camp still Sunday through Saturday. Yes, at this time. We don't have plans to end that. I know some camps and some other councils have decided to end camp a day early or something like that. Right now, I don't think we need to do that, but that certainly could exist out there, but certainly we'll let you know that in well enough advance to make sure that you know that, but we are not planning to do that if we don't have to at this time. Will the camp provide latrine and other sanitation supplies in camp? Absolutely. The sanitation supplies that we provide will be the ones that you will need to use for cleaning your own campsite and your own latrine. So yeah, it's a good question. Thank Tom. What do we anticipate will happen if anyone at camp is found to have COVID? Our health and medical people are working on some protocols for isolation and immediate isolation. We will be doing some contact tracing in camp. That's why we need to kind of know where everybody's going to be at all times. So there'll be contact tracing, there'll be isolation, and there'll be kind of immediate removal. We may also have some rapid testing available on site or locally so that we can confirm that or deny that, potentially if someone's from far away. But yeah, our health and safety group is working on that very diligently to have a plan in place. Do not envy your job. There were some comments from some of the people who are on some of our committees. Thank you, Phil, for jumping in there. What was the website you had listed for the campership form? It's right on the Goose Pond website, gpsr.nepabsa.org under the leaders page. That form is there. It's fillable. You can print them off. You can send people to it. You can download the form and share it with your whole troop if you want, or people that need it. I'm working on down the road having some hammock only sites or sites available. It's on my wish list along with a lot of other things, but we're working on that. On physicals, do we need to send them before camp we arrive? No, we are not going to collect medical forms from anyone before you arrive for camp. Ken Morgan put the link in the chat for the campership form. Thank you, Ken. Shorter link to campership forms. There's another link there. Thank you, Ken. Pre-camp form from Phil Erb. He linked that on there. Thank you, Phil. Can scouts bring their own kayak or canoe for one of the merit badges? No, we do not allow scouts to bring their own boat to camp. If there's a real special need for that, email me and we can talk about it, but generally we have not allowed scouts to bring their own boat to camp, or leaders for that matter. But we have made exceptions over the years on occasion, but if there's a special need for that, let me know. I may have missed a couple questions in there. I was scrolling quickly, but I think I answered all of them. Again, if you have any questions or I missed your question in the chat, please email me directly, and the people who get that will answer it, and we'll make sure we get an answer back to you as soon as we possibly can. Do give us, if you don't hear back from me instantly after you send an email, be patient. I will get back to you within 24 hours or so if we can. So I hope that was helpful to all of you. I hope that it gave you a good start and give you a good idea of what we're looking at for camp this year. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for taking the time to be a scout leader, to continue the great program that is scouting and give scouts that value-based, fun, incredible life experience that is scouting. So thank you all for that. Have a great night, and we'll be in touch with you as you go forward. I'll also continue to send emails out to people, so monitor your emails. If you see something from Dave Cerebro, it's probably good news, probably good information, so take a look at it. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for your help.